Hi. Now I'm going to talk about the third point in our guide that we provided, how to communicate during the COVID-19 crisis. Number 1 was to get a team together. Number 2 was to think about who your audiences are. And then once you do that, point number 3 is a bit of the crux of how you do this. And I get a lot of questions about this all the time. The first thing is you need to think to yourself, put yourself in their shoes, each audience that you've identified as important to talk to, and say, what do they really need to know from me? And how often do they need to know that? People are saying, is there a guideline? Is what's too much? What's not enough? And really, it has a lot to do with your audience and what they need right now. So here are a couple things to think about. First, you want to clearly communicate how your organization is operating during this time. As we know, of course, some are closed. You need to let your customers or your clients, your, of course, employees know that. But that's important. That's the number one thing you should make sure you do. Note, if you don't have a change in how you're working, don't tell people that. It's okay, unless they're worried that you aren't open. So think about the audience and what they really care about and what they need before you start posting a bunch of things. You want to reassure them that you'll still get quality services, quality products, or if there's something changed, again, you tell them that. You can add a banner to your webpage. Lots of people are doing that. It's a pretty straightforward thing. Most marketers can do it, and there are lots of great agencies who'll do it for a minimal charge. Post it on social media, put a link if you have a blog page, post it on your Google My Business page. Wherever you are commonly communicating is where you put this. For example, we're not on Instagram, so I am not going to go put any notices on Instagram. Actually, if you follow CMO-OnLoan, we haven't talked about our operating. It has not changed very much at all. We generally were remote. I would go on site with clients, which of course I'm not doing that, but they already know that because they're in the same situation. So I don't need to tell them that. On the other hand, I am sharing information on the channels we usually communicate, which is via our emails that we send and as well on our LinkedIn. So keep that in mind. The other thing to consider is whether you have a content calendar or a communications calendar, whatever you happen to call it, make sure it's appropriate for the time. You're going to want to look at that. We had a content calendar that we work out a couple weeks in advance, and we blew it all up. And so we got to think about something different to be relevant for the time. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about relevant communication. You don't need to just keep sending things that just because they were already in the queue if they're not reflective of the time and what people need to know. So then the second thing, and I talked about this a second ago, if there is a change, make sure you do provide that. Communicate as much as you can based on the relevancy of that communication and when you have accurate information. Don't project. I think if any of us have learned in the last couple of weeks, now is not the time to project. Be transparent and be flexible and be willing to adjust. This goes back to having your communications team and being able to make decisions quickly as things change so much. So again, thank you very much. This is point number 3 on communicating during COVID-19.